Hello, Harding Independence Charter District families. My name is Rachel Dowell, and I'm the Chief Academic Officer for the district. I'm making this video today to help you guys understand the MAP Growth family reports that you'll be receiving in the mail in the next week or two. So before we get going, there are a few details about MAP testing that I think will be helpful for you to know about before we dive into this report. The very first thing is that we MAP test 3 times a year. This allows us to measure your students' growth over time. We test at the end of August, we'll test in the beginning to mid part of January, and then we'll test again right before state testing in April. So when we test, we have your student take 3 different academic tests. They take math, reading, and language. When we get this information, it allows your students to set goals for themselves. It allows teachers to have a good understanding of what your students are successful in and what they're going to need a little bit of extra support in. And then it helps the school basically come up with an overall idea of things that they could be doing to help students become more successful academically. So there are a lot of things that we can do with MAP data once we have it. But really, the most important thing starts at home with families understanding what the needs of your students are. So that's where this MAP family report comes into place. So you're going to receive this in the mail, and your students should also get a copy of it in either Power Up or Advisory. Power Up is what we call it in the middle school. Advisory is what we call it at the high school level. So when you receive this report, it will have your student's name on it, the testing period, so it will be fall 2023. It'll have their grade and their school. So this is good because it allows you to basically keep these for your records, and you too will have a good idea of how your student is growing over time. MAP gives us data in 2 ways. It gives us data about student achievement, and it also gives us data about student growth. So when we talk about student achievement, we're talking about how your student compares with other students on a national level. When we talk about student growth, we're talking about how your student is comparing with him or herself over time. So the first test that we'll look at is the mathematics report. So down here, there are a few different things that you can note by looking at this graph. This is where we'll start. First of all, you can see that you will have a data point for each of the last 5 MAP tests that your student has taken. So if your student was in the district last year, then they'll probably have 3 data points from last year, and then they'll have the first one from this year. What's really cool about this is that we can do MAP testing K through 12, so the longer that a student is in the district with us, the more specific information we have about their growth over time, which is super neat to see. One thing that I'll say is that it's pretty common for a graph to look like this one does, where in the fall, you can see that this was a fall 2020 testing period, and this is just a sample report that's on MAP's website. So in fall of 19, this student starts off low, and then in winter they grow, and then in spring they grow more, and then over the summer there's a slide. And so it's pretty common actually for students to have a high point in the spring and for their fall score to be lower than their spring score was. So that is a pretty standard thing that you would see. That doesn't mean that that's what you'll see with your students, but if you do, don't fear, because that's generally what happens when students are out of school for 2 months, is they forget some things. And it takes a little bit to get back in the swing of things. So this number right here is your student's RIT score. Your RIT score is kind of complicated to explain, and I'll make another video at a later time that gives some more information about the RIT score. But what's most important for you is going to be what percentile is your student scoring at. So you can see that this student has a low average achievement. So they are scoring in the 38th percentile nationally. So MAP tells us that if a student is going to be proficient in state testing, the average student who is proficient on a state test is scoring at the 70th percentile. So we want students to be at the 70th percentile or above come spring. So this student would have basically like a long track ahead of them in order to meet that benchmark. It's definitely not, or it's not impossible, but that does mean that it would be hard for your student to pass the state test if they're scoring at the 38th percentile, because they're trying to make it to the 70th percentile. Also, over here on this side, we see like over here is achievement. So again, that's how they are comparing against other students nationally for a specific time period. And then over here in this box, this tells us about their growth. So this is how do they compare with themselves? How much did they grow, between the last testing period? And we get this percentile also based on a national number. So this right here tells us that this student, they actually grew faster than like their achievement shows. So they're scoring kind of low, but compared to other students nationally, they grew at the 55th percentile. So the higher that the growth is, the more that your student is progressing academically in a short period of time. So the best news that you could get as a parent if your student is scoring in the low category over here would be that they have high growth in between data points. Now, if you are new to us in the district, then you won't have any data points from last year. So you won't have any information over in this box until January. Down here, it tells you if students are likely to pass the state tests and if they are on track to reach benchmark on the ACT and on the ACT when they take those their junior year. Over here for reading and language, you would read it the exact same way that you read math in these two boxes. So you have their achievement box right here, and you have their growth box right here. So this is how they're comparing to other students nationally. This is how much they have grown themselves over time, and then also like compared to other students nationally. But really it focuses more on growth. What did they score in testing session 1 versus testing session 2 compared to other students. So this is the basics about how to read the MAP family reports. I hope that you found it helpful. Should you have any questions, please reach out to your school administrators, or you can email me at rdowell, RDOWELL. In fact, maybe I can even write that. Yes. rdowell at hicd.org. Remember, it takes a village to make sure that your kids are being successful, and we want the best for them. That's why we have implemented some different practices this year. So like on Mondays, if your student is scoring in the, let's say that they were at the 18th percentile, at either one of our schools, your student would be in the Late Start Monday intervention program. And at ICMS, all students are working on math skills during their Power Up on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. At the high school, I can't remember what the percentiles are, but basically like if your student is scoring in the low achievement, then they'll be in a IXL room during their advisory period as well. So all of this work, all of that effort is really about helping your student be successful academically and to reach the goals that they have for themselves to be able to get into college and be successful after they leave us at the end of high school. If you have a student who is really struggling in math, there are some things that you could do to help them at home. In addition to asking them, they're welcome to get on IXL from home if they want to continue doing some math or some reading intervention that way. You can also practice like math facts with your student or with your child. Math facts are like multiplication and division facts. Many of our students don't have those things memorized, and it really impacts their ability to be successful in the classrooms. So just some very basic things that you could do with your kids are just helping make sure that they've got those basic facts and some basic fluency to be able to do math problems quickly and confidently. A lot of the problems that students have is that they don't feel like they can be successful in a particular subject. So the more that we can enable them to feel like they can accomplish things and that they can be successful, the better off things are going to be. So again, if you have any questions, please reach out to me. Reach out to your site principals and assistant principals and teachers.